Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom, back from a 10-day vacation. Today is Monday, July 28, 2025. Who better to start with first thing on a Monday morning after a vacation than Alastair Crooke? And the topic is the Trump mystique broken? But first, this. We all know how devastating war is. Lives lost, communities destroyed. But war can also threaten your financial freedom. That's where America's heading. Our growing involvement in global conflicts. It means more spending, more debt, and a weaker dollar. That's a direct hit to your wallet. So here are three things to keep your eyes on: exploding debt, declining dollar, rising prices of gold and silver. These things are already happening. Goldman Sachs predicts gold could hit $4,500 an ounce by 2026. Why? Because central banks and smart investors are buying gold hand over fist. They know what's coming and they're hedging against it. Currency collapse, inflation, and market volatility. Gold has been a trusted store of value for thousands of years, and today we need that protection more than ever. Call Lear Capital now at 800-511-4620 or visit LearJudgeNap.com. No one is going to protect your wealth for you. You need to do it yourself, and now is the time. Alastair Crooke, welcome here, my dear friend. A pleasure to chat with you. A pleasure to see you as always. Before we get to President Trump's woes and the international implications of the Epstein scandal, I want to ask you a little bit about Netanyahu's woes. As we speak, in the middle of the summer 2025, how broken is the Israeli society?
Completely broken. I mean, I'm not trying to say something that is exaggerated, but if you look, recently we just put out a report all drawn from the Hebrew and Israeli press. What they're saying basically is that, this is not a place that they want to be in any longer. This is not a moral society, not a democratic society. They describe in lurid terms what's happening in Gaza to be a replay of the Holocaust. I mean, they are, and so me saying this is what is written in the Hebrew and the Israeli press, where they're saying very much that, this thing of, what are we doing in Gaza? We're going to try, we call it a humanitarian zone. It's a ghetto. And we all know what happened after the ghetto. What happened with the gas chambers? And they said, is this where we're heading? This is unacceptable. So Netanyahu's in deep trouble. There are divisions. Israel is overextended in all these conflicts he got involved with. Again, it is now at war in Syria against Turkey. And so it's a very complicated situation. At the same time, there's deep, deep problems about the legal situation, about the way ahead. Reservists aren't turning up to duty. There is the talk from senior generals in IDF that they may just stop. They may go on strike against this government. The military going on strike against the Netanyahu government because they don't believe in its objectives any longer, and they foresee a disaster for Israel. And one's only just got to look around and see, what's happened, the policies that followed on from March, which was when Witkoff changed the terms of the agreement that was made in January. Witkoff and Trump changed it. At the end of January, the agreement was that Hamas would release all the hostages, and it would lead to an end to the war, withdrawal and the end to the war, a final end to the war in Gaza. Well, in March, Witkoff and Trump backed off that, backed away from it, and they said, No, we accept Netanyahu's view that it will lead only to a small amount of releases, will lead to a temporary ceasefire. Ceasefire again. A ceasefire, and at the end of the ceasefire, the war in Gaza will return. Well, not surprisingly, Hamas said, no, thank you. We prefer to go back to the original agreement. We're not going to go to this new agreement where there's a temporary ceasefire where you go on with us. So what happened? In March, when Trump and Witkoff withdrew from that, there was escalation in Gaza. The IDF escalated in Gaza, and at the same time, Netanyahu cut off the food and water and supplies, medical supplies too. And only under huge international pressure has he been forced to back down. This is the nature of the sort of divisions inside. Most Israelis are horrified at this, that Israel is starving children and women like this. Many of them, it's going to be a real mess. It's coming apart. It's taken a little time, but it is coming apart.
Not too long ago, you and our colleagues on the program indicated that as horrific as Prime Minister Netanyahu's genocidal policies were towards the Palestinians, they enjoyed the broad support of Israelis. Are you now telling us that, in your view, from your scanning of the Israeli press, that the Israeli public is recognizing that the establishment of ghettos, the erection of concentration camps, the concept of collective punishment without due process are in fact hallmarks of a Nazi regime and are willing to say that publicly?
They are. I mean, senior people, there is still support for the right. I would be misleading you if I said there wasn't. There's still support for Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and the settler groups. And the settler groups were cheering and being excited because of the, if you like, the withdrawal of food and water and medicine from Gaza. So there is still support for it. At the moment, he's passed through, the Knesset is going into summer recess, and so he may be able to continue on. But the state, as having any meaning, as having a sense of direction of where it is going, is really broken. And to illustrate that, I would just say, we hear Witkoff talk about the Abraham Accords and that we're going to extend them and increase them. What are the Abraham Accords now? Well, we see that clearly in Syria and in Lebanon and in Iraq. This is not a peaceful agreement to normalize relations with Israel, as it was presented, as it was. This is a forced subjugation to the terms offered by Israel. That's what's happening in Syria. Sharar is being told, this is what Israel is going to accept, and you have to put up with it or else. This is what they are saying in Lebanon. And what has Trump and Netanyahu done in order to enforce this? They reasserted ISIS 2.0. ISIS 2.0 is what you are seeing freely ranging in Syria, executing Christians, Alawites, and others that do not, if you like, succumb to their narrow Wahhabi view of the Islamic religion. And this is, I mean, of course, it's sensitizing Iran, it's sensitizing Iraq, which fought a war against ISIS. And now ISIS is back on the scene. And this is part of the system. What are the Abraham Accords now? It's going to be ethnic divisions, sectarian divisions between it. It is balkanization of the Middle East enforced by military power from Israel. That's what we're talking about. The Abraham Accords is some nice, peaceful sort of process of normalization with Israel. It is not at all. And what's it all about? Well, this is the bigger story. the bigger story is, what is it all about? Well, of course, it's about Iran. When you introduce ISIS, it's about Iran because it's against the Shia. ISIS has a long-standing desire to eradicate, annihilate the Shia and to assert its control. And that's what it's about. And in Iraq and in Lebanon, so when Syria, if it accepts the demands of Israel, then parts of the, if you like, al-Sharaa forces will see that in Lebanon. This is the ultimatum that has been given to Lebanon. You have to physically disarm the nearly half the population who are Shia, and you have to make them, if you like, submissive to Israel. Same in Iraq is going on. They are demanding the disarmament of the Hashad, of the PMU. All have to be disarmed and neutralized. These are the terms of, if you like, normalization that is being set out. Then the same thing is happening, of course, with Iran. And this is, why is it happening against Iran? Why are we seeing, if you like, Azerbaijan heated up, Armenia heated up? Why are we seeing Turkey involved in trying to open corridors across Iran? To isolate Iran, to weaken Russia, of course, because Iran is, if you like, one of the poles of Russia's power, together with China. And this is what's going on. As the failure becomes more evident in Ukraine, the US and European deep states, particularly the British one, I'm sad to say, are very active in trying to, what they see as extend Russia, make pressure points all around Russia's periphery, whether it is from Central Asia, whether it's from Azerbaijan, whether it's in Iran, or from other parts, from the sea routes, from, if you like, from the Baltic Sea. All of this is part of the move as the war in Ukraine fails and NATO fails there. The pressure is building. So that's what's happening. The Abraham Accords are not Abrahamic Accords or normalization. They are the military subjection of the Middle East to Israeli hegemony, and behind that, US hegemony.
Let's segue into the Epstein affair. I want to ask you about the potential international geopolitical implications of Epstein, and I'll get right to the bottom line here. Is bombing Iran again a Trump option to divert from the dastardly press he's getting on Epstein?
Yes, it is. It's a real risk, a serious risk. Let me just explain very quickly. It seems, I'm not going into the Epstein affair because everyone knows about it, but it is clear that Trump is tainted. He is tainted, even if he was not directly involved. He was a close friend of Epstein for years. He was part of that milieu of oligarchs, of intelligence officers, of political players, and he swam in that water. So did Epstein, so did intelligence services, so did the very rich oligarchs as well. But he was part, and this has caused a great, if you like, misgivings within his base. They thought he was one of them, not one of these people. And now that it's turned out that it's also involves something that cuts to the quick of their morality, pedophilia. I'm not suggesting anyone particular was directly involved other than Epstein, but this pedophilia, this general pedophilia, just, doing, assaulting, torturing children is just unacceptable. Even if the milieu was doing other things about political interests, financial interests, intelligent interests, the sense that it also at some levels involved children, just abhorrent. And so there is, if you like, a sense of moving away. And I'm not sure that he can control that or divert from it, because this is different. We know that our elites lie and they steal, but I mean, doing these things, those elites, and by the way, it's in Europe. I'm not suggesting this is an American affair, very much in Europe and also in Israel. And I'm not saying this is an American affair, but it's really gripping it. So the question is, and this is where the geopolitics comes in, is Trump entering as a sort of second-term president? Is he beginning to enter into lame duck status in America? Is he starting to become a lame duck? With all that carries, as people start to say, well, who's going to inherit MAGA? Who's going to inherit the Republican Party? I think constitutionally, Trump will find it very hard, possible perhaps, to see himself as a lame duck. He will need diversion. He will need wins. He will desperately try and get them. He's just tried to get one during his golfing holiday by, if you like, steamrolling the European Union. But the more important one, of course, is Russia. And in his weakened state, the hawks are pushing him harder. But there is a great problem here. There is no inventory, no weapon availability, no missile availability until you move up, as David Ignatius suggested in the Washington Post. The only real things you can do to put pressure on Moscow at the moment is to go to Tomahawk missiles, 2,000 range, 2,000 kilometer range, serious missiles fired either from submarines, and there is a land version of it too, but mostly from submarines. These were used against Iran, against the nuclear process. So, but what, in that case, you're going to, a big war. So there is a void. If you have got nothing to offer, 8 or 9 Patriot missiles or something trivial, then there is a big gap because there's nothing online, there's nothing can be bought, there's nothing that can be conveyed to Ukraine, bar major missiles that can strike St. Petersburg and Moscow. But that takes you into deep, deep territory. So what's the alternative? Well, the only alternative, which he just has mentioned in recent days, is he said, well, if things go on in Iran, maybe we'll have to do it again, bomb Iran again. And on cue, Mr. Grossi, the Secretary General of the IAEA, he said, oh, well, there are new sites we are discovering that need to be inspected. There are new things. We are not really happy with things that are going on. Even as Mr. Trump says, it's all obliterated. There's nothing existing. Well, the ground is being prepared. And in Israel, the ground is being prepared, exaggerating what happened on the 13th of June, when Israel attacks it and says and declares that it completely destroyed the air defense capabilities of Iran. They damaged it, but they did not destroy it because they wouldn't venture into Iranian airspace during that time. All that was done was from outside.
On the last show that we did before my break, Max Blumenthal gave all the reasons he believes, gave on air all the reasons he believes that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad asset. The Israelis apparently, the Netanyahu regime, and even some of his political adversaries went bonkers over this. Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister of Great Britain, of Israel, and not a friend of Prime Minister Netanyahu, denounced and threatened Max. Why do you think they reacted like that?
Because they're frightened. This is the this is the underlying theme. America first, not Israel first. And quite clearly, we see in all, whether it is in the tariffs or whether it is in the military situation around Israel, that Trump is taking the Israeli line, the Israeli position, the Israeli interests first, and therefore putting the United States into a series of conflicts with Iran, in Syria, against ISIS, in Lebanon is coming, probably in Iraq, and what might happen, even it could be extend to Egypt as Israel continues the rampage. So they are very frightened, and we see, that young people, in America, young people, I mean, the favorability rating for Trump amongst the young, up to 35, is falling dramatically. And one of the reasons is that they do think that somehow policy is Israel first and Israeli led, and that's not what they stood for. And they didn't want more wars in the Middle East. They didn't want forever wars, and so there is a deep sense there of potential that they'd been betrayed, that Trump wasn't what he purported to be, that he purported to want peace, and that he wanted to put America first. That's what he said. That's what he promised. And there is a great doubt now that is what he is delivering. Indeed, I mean, as I've just described to you about what's happening in Syria and Lebanon, this is not sort of peaceful normalization on the standards that we were told. This is coerced, and this is going on everywhere. And of course, Iran is being coerced, and Russia is being coerced, but Russia, they're frightened of.
Wow. Here's a clip from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who's really caught in the bind on this because all Democrats and a significant number of Republicans want to subpoena the Epstein file. This is one of the rare things that a single House can do. They don't need the consent of the Senate, and it appears there is a majority. In order to avoid that vote, he adjourned the House for the entire month of August, which got under a lot of people's skin. So the first of these clips we're going to run is Speaker Johnson criticizing another Republican, Thomas Massie, who's leading the charge to open up and release the files, and then Congressman Massey's response. Both of these are from Meet the Press yesterday.
Thomas Massie is suggesting that this is some sort of watershed moment. We are all on the same page trying to advance the truth, full truth and transparency. And the idea that he's suddenly so concerned about it is curious to me. He waited until President Trump was elected to bring
Hypocritical?
this. Seems that way to me.
Well, Congressman Massey, let me turn to you. What say you? Are you being hypocritical by demanding this now and not sooner?
The release of the Epstein files is emblematic of what Trump ran for and why he got the populist vote. There seems to be a class of people beyond the law, beyond the judicial system, that operates outside of all of that. And we all thought that when Trump was elected, he would be the bull in the china shop and that he would break that up and bring transparency. Frankly, it wasn't until just recently that I realized that people who were allegedly working on this weren't sincere in their efforts. And also, politics is the art of the doable. There's enough public pressure right now that we can get 218 votes and force this to a vote on the floor. Somebody should ask Speaker Mike Johnson, why did he recess Congress early so that he didn't have to deal with the Epstein issue? He can bring this to the floor at any point, yet he's chosen to send us home early for August recess.
I guess the Epstein affair is going to reverberate even into international politics, even into Tel Aviv.
Indeed it is, because I think what is being threatened there basically is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you know more about it, is that the Congress can, on its initiative, seek depositions, maybe even from Ghislaine Maxwell, Maybe
Yes.
even from Steve Bannon, who has 15 hours of tape recordings of Epstein. I don't know. These are all things that may merge, but it's like a sort of river. It's taking one area, it's flowing this way, and then it flows back, and it's flowing in another direction. One can't tell. But this is why I'm saying, it may end up that Mr. Trump becomes more of a lame duck. And then the danger is that he will need to try and divert us. And the best thing to divert people at this time, has always been historically, is to try and start a war.
Alastair Crooke, thank you very much, my dear friend. Thanks for allowing me to go across the board on the subject matters which we addressed. It's good to be back with you. Much appreciated. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Of course. And coming up later today, it's back to our old routine on Monday. At 10 o'clock this morning, Ray McGovern. At 11:30 this morning, Larry Johnson. At 2:30 this afternoon, Scott Ritter. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.